All right, thanks, Tucker. Welcome to Hannity. We have major breaking news about special counsel Robert Mueller's witch hunt against President Trump. Information overload hour right here on this program. We're going to lay out the case tonight about how the American justice system, your system, is literally hanging by a thread. Our Constitution hangs in the balance tonight, and we'll explain all of this to you, but it's going to take the entire hour. Please stay with us. Also tonight, an inside look at how Donald Trump shocked the political world and won the White House in historic fashion. The co-authors, they were there. The new book, Let Trump Be Trump, Corey Lewandowski, David Bossie, they will give you that insider story right here. Also, Newt Gingrich, Judge Jeanine Pirro, Sara Carter, Greg Jarrett, Victoria Tunsing, Dan Bongino, just to name a few. But first, the politics, the corruption, the malfeasance at play to unseat a duly elected president by you is far worse than anybody could have thought or could have ever even imagined. This is rotten to the core. It is creating now a clear and present danger to this country. Tonight, explosive new information about Peter Strzok. He's the former top FBI counterintelligence official that was removed from the Russia investigation. Why? For sending anti-Trump, pro-Hillary Clinton text messages. Fox News tonight has learned that Strzok's role in the Clinton email investigation is now under review. I'll address that. And Strzok is directly tied to everything. The Clinton email probe, the Trump so-called Russia investigation. We have investigative reporter Sara Carter is reporting that Strzok even interviewed Lieutenant General Michael Flynn and Hillary Clinton in both cases. And Fox News has confirmed that the former FBI official changed the language. He did it in James Comey's draft letter about Hillary Clinton from grossly negligent to extreme carelessness. Plus, the deputy FBI director, Andrew McCabe, he has been identified tonight as the key witness that Congress wants to interview in regards to the anti-Trump fake news dossier and propaganda. And media insanity, ABC News suspends reporter Brian Ross after he is caught red-handed spreading more fake news and outright lies about General Flynn and the president. We also have very serious questions tonight about the rule of law, equal justice under the law that you, the American people, deserve answers to. Is America now, as my friend Mark Levin says, becoming a post-constitutional republic? We'll cover all of this and much more in tonight's Breaking News opening monologue. All right, this is one of those nights you've got to stay tuned for the hour. There is so much new information to cover. It gets complicated, but it does all fit together. And I promise, guess what? You won't get this anywhere else on TV. We start with new, explosive information in the developing scandal involving former top FBI official. His name is Peter Strzok. And according to reports from over the weekend, Strzok was removed from Mueller's investigation this summer after it was discovered that he was sending anti-Trump text messages to his girlfriend, a woman named Lisa Page. She worked as a top FBI lawyer under Deputy Director Andrew McCabe. Now, since then, Fox News has learned that the Office of Inspector General is now reviewing Peter Strzok's role in the Clinton email server investigation. And from what we know, Strzok, who is an anti-Trump, Hillary Clinton-loving FBI official, was intimately involved in investigating Hillary Clinton's use of a private email server. Now, just stop for a second. Now, think about James Comey. He was writing an exoneration before an investigation. And our own Catherine Herridge is reporting that Strzok was on the ground floor of that Clinton email server investigation. This is crucial. Now, that includes participating in the July 2nd, 2016 interview of the former Secretary of State. Also, remember, she was not under oath. And Strzok was involved in recommending whether or not Hillary Clinton should be prosecuted. Remember, they hadn't fully investigated. And Fox News has confirmed that the FBI official actually was the one that changed the language in James Comey's draft letter before the investigation was concluded about Hillary Clinton. The legal term, grossly negligent. He changed it to extremely careless. And the FBI agent also helped draft James Comey, his now infamous exoneration statement that let Clinton off the hook. They never did the investigation. And Strzok led the probe into classified Huma Abedin emails. This guy's everywhere that were found on Anthony Weiner's computer. Now, House investigators are also telling Fox News tonight they believe that it was Strzok that is tied to the FBI's handling of the anti-Trump fake news phony Russian dossier. and the FISA surveillance of a Trump campaign associate. Now, what this all means is that the fix was in on the Clinton investigation. What we have now is just more evidence, incontrovertible evidence. And speaking of the fake news dossier, Catherine Herridge is also reporting tonight that FBI Deputy Director Andrew McCabe is the key witness that Congress now wants to interview about that dossier. But McCabe, he's not going to show up to testify on Thursday. He is thought to have been the FBI's key point person or the handler of former British M6 agent Christopher Steele, the guy that created the phony dossier and paid Russians to lie to influence you in that election. Now, remember, according to reports, a political action committee tied to the Virginia governor, Terry McAuliffe, best friends with the Clintons. Remember, he gave $500,000 to Andrew McCabe's wife, Jill. She was running for her Virginia state Senate seat. Now, Virginia's Democratic Party also gave Jill McCabe over $200,000, an obscene amount to any state Senate candidate. Now, President Trump is reacting to this new information. He's tweeting out, after years of Comey with the phony and dishonest Clinton investigation and more running the FBI, its reputation is in tatters, worst in history. But fear not, we will bring it back to greatness. The president's 100% right about James Comey and about Hillary Clinton and about there being a double standard for Lieutenant General Michael Flynn. The president commented further on all of this. Let's take a look.
Well, I feel badly for General Flynn. I feel very badly. He's led a very strong life, and I feel very badly, John. I will say this. Hillary Clinton lied many times to the FBI. Nothing happened to her. Flynn lied, and they destroyed his life. I think it's a shame. Hillary Clinton, on the 4th of July weekend, went to the FBI, not under oath. It was the most incredible thing anyone's ever seen. She lied many times. Nothing happened to her. Flynn lied, and it's like they ruined his life. It's very unfair.
Now, I know this is a ton of information to unpack here, so let me break this down even further for you. Here's what all of this means. We have an anti-Trump, pro-Hillary Clinton, top FBI official that is directly involved in letting Hillary Clinton walk free before interviewing the key people in the investigation, including Hillary Clinton. They exonerated Clinton before ever concluding the investigation. Then this same FBI official helped oversee special counsel Robert Mueller's probe into possible election interference and, according to Sara Carter's reporting, interviewed Lieutenant General Michael Flynn. This guy's abusively biased. We have been saying for months that this is a political witch hunt. This new information about Peter Strzok is a smoking gun. These types of tactics, they're only used in banana republics. Now, House Intelligence Committee Chairman Devin Nunes, he is now threatening to hold the FBI and the DOJ in contempt of Congress for stonewalling about why this guy Strzok was fired back in August. And what all of you need to know, the American people tonight, you need to know this. How deeply was this one guy, Peter Strzok, involved in Mueller's investigation? Because other than Michael Flynn, who else did he interview? Why didn't he put Hillary under oath? And where else could Strzok have influenced and compromised this investigation with what we now know was a politically biased agenda? Remember, Lieutenant General Flynn, he was surveilled, he was unmasked, his name was leaked to the press. That is illegal, that is a crime. Nobody's been investigated or arrested. So what they did to Flynn is illegal. And we can't discount the other massive conflicts of interest, the other red flags coming from special counsel Mueller's team. For example, key members of Mueller's team, look at the money on your screen, donated tens of thousands of dollars, not to any Republicans, Democrats like Barack Obama and Hillary Clinton. How can anybody honestly say that those people are going to be fair and impartial after supporting liberal politicians with huge amounts of money, including President Trump's 2016 opponent? This stinks to high heaven. And there's the investigator, Andrew Weissmann, another questionable member and choice by Mueller's team. Our friend and colleague Greg Jarrett did some digging into Weissmann's past. Here's what he found. Back during the Enron accounting scandal, Weissmann was a hard-charging prosecutor on the task force that brought a controversial obstruction of justice case against the accounting firm Arthur Andersen that eventually put that company out of business. It cost tens of thousands of people their jobs, and it was for nothing because in 2005, the Supreme Court of the the United States overturned the obstruction of justice conviction in a unanimous 9-0 ruling. Next to impossible. And it's not the only example of Weissman's aggressive tactics resulting in a case being overturned. The conviction of a business transaction between Enron and Merrill Lynch, it sent people to jail, was also reversed by the Fifth Circuit Court of Appeals. Critics have also accused Weissman of intimidating witnesses, creating crimes that do not even exist, and in one case in particular, withholding exculpatory evidence that would have helped the defendant. And just like Mueller, Weissman is also tied to the corrupt Uranium One deal and the ensuing cover-up. Now, Weissman ran the DOJ's fraud section during the Russian bribery scheme, and Greg Jarrett actually noticed it was his name and his signature on the bottom of the plea agreement signed by the Russian businessman involved in that case. And we can't forget that Mueller is also, what, best friends, BFF, with James Comey. A huge, massive conflict of interest and potentially even a violation of law. All of this is inexcusable in any country that cares about the rule of law. You should not be allowed to tolerate this in any way, shape, matter, or form. And we should be asking ourselves a simple question. Why, in God's name, would Robert Mueller put this abusively biased team together of unethical political crusaders who have an agenda that we can now prove? Why are they involved in this investigation? It's been one giant pattern of bias and abuse of power. And we have a tremendous amount of respect on this program for those of you that watch for law enforcement. We have a tremendous respect for the intelligence community who put their lives on the line for us every day. But because of politics, what? Our Justice Department has people in it like Peter Strzok that are abusively politically biased? What is the result? We now have a two-tiered justice system that I've been warning about. It is now creating a clear and present danger to this republic. If we weaponize the tools of surveillance, the powerful tools, and if we have two sets of standards for justice, and people in power think they know what's in the best interest of you, the American people, and will undermine a duly elected president and try and get him thrown out of office since the day he's elected, we will have then lost this country. And tonight, there's another major angle to the story that we cannot ignore or discount. As the Washington Examiner's Byron York points out in a new article, the investigation into Michael Flynn was not about Russia collusion or conspiracy between the Trump campaign and Russia. Rather, it hinges on what's known as the Logan Act. Let me explain what this is. According to York, the Logan Act is a 218-year-old law in this country, a law that prohibits private citizens from acting on behalf of the United States in disputes with foreign governments. Guess what? In 218 years, nobody has ever been prosecuted under this law, and many legal experts call it archaic and simply irrelevant. And some even go as far to say that it's unconstitutional. But this is what that law played the central role in the Obama administration's investigation into Flynn. Never mind the surveillance, unmasking, and illegal leaks of intelligence. It's reportedly why the FBI agents went to the White House to interview Flynn back in January 24th about discussions that he had during the transition period with his counterpart, the Russian ambassador, about sanctions the Obama administration had placed on Russia and a UN resolution on Israel. Big deal. That would have been his job. This is the interview where Flynn, quote, lied to the FBI, which led to his guilty plea. Again, nothing to do with Russia. But let's take a step back for a minute. Now, during this transition period, Obama's State Department said they didn't have any problem with the Trump transition team reaching out to foreign officials. They said it. Watch this.
This building doesn't see anything necessarily inappropriate about contact between members of the incoming administration and foreign officials, no matter what country they're from, right?
No. And again, this has been ongoing. I mean, we stand ready if they want to work through the State Department to contact some of these individuals, but we have no comment or no problem with them doing such on their own.
For all of this to be based on whether General Flynn, 35-year servant of his country, that he violated a 218-year-old law, which no one has ever been prosecuted under, is stunning. And that's not all. Former federal prosecutor Andy McCarthy is also saying this is now an obstruction of justice investigation, and the ultimate goal is to impeach President Trump. Where did you hear that before? And finally tonight, as we often say on this show, we are not the Destroy Trump media. And if you're watching at home, have no doubts about fake news not being a clear present danger to the Trump administration. They are the willing accomplices in all of this. And we have an example that should make you a believer. It's scary, it's real, and it proves what we've been saying on this program since 2008. Journalism in America is dead. And on Friday morning, as news was breaking about General Flynn pleading guilty to lying to the FBI, ABC News chief investigative correspondent Brian Ross reported that Flynn was prepared to testify that it was candidate Trump that directed him to make contact with the Russians. Here's his report.
This certainly would seem to suggest that Michael Flynn had a fair amount of information to offer the special counsel in return.
That's right, George. He has promised full cooperation to the Mueller team. He's prepared to testify, we are told by a confidant, against President Trump, against members of the Trump family, and others in the White House. He is prepared to testify that President Trump, as a candidate, Donald Trump, directed him to make contact with the Russians, which contradicts all that Donald Trump has said at this point.
Hours later, Ross had to, quote, change his tune and, quote, corrected his reporting. And here's what he said on Nightly News.
David, a clarification tonight on something one of Flynn's confidants told us, and we reported earlier today. He said the president had asked Flynn to contact Russia during the campaign. He's now clarifying that, saying, according to Flynn, candidate Trump asked him during the campaign to find ways to repair relations with Russia and other hotspots. And then after the election, the president-elect asked him and told him to contact Russia on issues, including working together to fight ISIS.
Hello, big difference between candidate Trump and President-elect Trump. Asking Flynn to contact his soon-to-be counterparts. And according to the Washington Post on Twitter, Brian Ross initially issued a tweet promoting his fake news report about, quote, well, candidate Trump, which was retweeted 25,000 times before it was ultimately deleted. Now, this erroneous reporting, or let's call it what it is, lie, was being spread over and over again by numerous news outlets all day on Friday before Brian Ross had to walk back the story. And on Saturday, ABC News announced it's suspending Ross for 4 weeks without pay. By the way, little too late. And unfortunately for ABC, this isn't the first time Brian Ross has been accused of peddling fake news. I have a whole history of it. Like, for example, in 2012, when Ross falsely suggested the Colorado mass shooter James Holmes, he could be tied to the Tea Party. That turned out to be wrong, too. Here with reaction, investigative reporter Sara Carter, former DOJ official Victoria Tunsing, Fox News legal analyst Greg Jarrett. Sara, this is your blockbuster, the FBI supervisor. He's the same one that interviewed Hillary. Tell everybody everything this guy was involved in, and he's anti-Trump and he's pro-Clinton.
Well, I think, Sean, that what concerns most intelligence officials and FBI officials that I've spoken to about Peter Strzok is that he was so overt about his politics. And remember, this was a complaint I reported on your show months ago. April, June, July, where I was talking about how FBI officials, the guys working on the ground, working on these cases, were stunned that some of their higher ups seemed very partisan to Hillary Clinton, and they were going after Trump and Trump campaign officials. And Michael Flynn was one of them. And you brought something up that's very important when you talked about the unmasking. Remember, there were reports all through December, and then after Susan Rice denied that she unmasked and later admitted that she unmasked, then people started to tell stories like, well, we were concerned about the way other nations were going to feel, so we needed to hear what they were saying about the election of President Trump. They came up with all kinds of stories. What we see now, based on this evidence, based on the fact that we know now Peter Strzok interviewed Flynn, that he was involved in the Hillary Clinton email server investigation, one of the central key players.
They exonerated. Nobody gets exonerated before an investigation is complete. Now he's trashing Trump, and then he's going after Flynn. Let me go from the legal side. Let me ask Greg Jarrett. As you point out, how many other members of Robert Mueller's special counsel harbor blatant pro-Clinton, anti-Trump bias? And you have another column you're writing.
And corrupt purposes, yes. And look, Mueller stacked his entire staff, almost his entire staff, with Democratic donors, as you point out. They were not reviewed or vetted.
Any Republican
there was no
donors?
Scrutiny, not that we're aware of. But what's curious is, given the makeup, the composition of his staff, how many others have sent out these virulently anti-Trump email messages? Rod Rosenstein, the Intel Committee, as well as the Inspector General, need to look into the email messages of every other member of Mueller's staff and begin with Andrew Weissman. Why? Because Weissman has very close ties with a lawyer he hired at the Department of Justice who sent out anti-Trump tweets and retweets and who was there at an anti-Trump protest. Her name is Wei Chen. Did Weissman send such emails to Wei Chen? That needs to be looked into.
Let me ask about this obvious agenda-driven team. Victoria, how can any of this hold up? An exoneration before an investigation, anti-Trump, pro-Hillary, and he's involved in all of it. Tell me how any judge would say this is admissible in any way.
Well, I don't, if you get the right judge, of course it's not going to be, but let me just add something else to the Andrew Weissman scenario, and that is, remember I told you about the fraud section lawyers who threatened to prosecute my client, Mr. Campbell, if he didn't withdraw his civil case?
Yes.
Guess who they reported to? Andrew Weissman.
Well, I'd like to know, by the way, I'm hearing rumors all over the place, Sarah Carter. There are other anti-Trump text emails out there, and we know about them.
I think you're hearing correctly, Sean, and I think a lot more is going to come out. In fact, I know a lot more is going to come out based on the sources I've spoken to. The Inspector General's report and investigation is ongoing. Parts of that report are expected to come out before the end of December, and the rest of it is expected to come out after the first of the year. I think we're going to be stunned at what they uncover.
I want to ask this. Isn't it obstruction of justice? I'll start with Victoria first. Isn't it obstruction of justice if Comey is exonerating and using this guy to exonerate Hillary before they even investigated, and this guy changes the language? That sounds to me just like Hillary destroying emails and BleachBit and busting up Blackberries. That all sounds like obstruction of justice to me.
Well, I don't know that it's obstruction of justice, but it is a corrupt FBI that did this. In the hierarchy, there are so many good FBI agents below, and I'm sure they're as shocked as we are about the conduct that's going on. But don't make too much over this change of this wording. I mean, I scratched my head when Comey said it was extremely careless. Well, if I were a judge giving, but if I were giving a jury instruction, I would say to them, gross negligence is like careless, grossly careless or extremely careless. They're synonymous.
No difference.
So, in fact, there's a standard jury instruction that says they're synonymous. But what happened here is it looks like Peter Strzok was trying to conjure some way to clear Hillary Clinton. So he changed the language because extremely careless isn't actually in the statute, which makes it a crime, even though obviously initially Comey knew she had committed a crime. So here you've got a guy, for corrupt purposes it appears, cleared Hillary Clinton and signed the papers launching the investigation against Donald Trump because he hates Donald Trump and loves Hillary Clinton.
This is all going to collapse. That is my prediction tonight. Thank you all for being with us. All right, we have so much more to get to. Newt Gingrich has reaction to all of this. And wait until you hear, by the way, Rush Limbaugh, what he is saying about Mueller's investigation. Straight ahead. All right, here with reaction on this important news day is the author of the best-selling book called Vengeance, former Speaker of the House, Fox News contributor, Newt Gingrich. You have a Trump-hating, Hillary-loving guy exonerating Hillary before the investigation, and you see what happens with General Flynn and all of Mueller's team of misfit toys, if you will, in this Christmas season with corruption and a lack of ethics. I really believe this is a danger to this country and equal justice under the law. Nobody in the media talks about it, sir.
Well, let me say two things. One, I don't think I fully appreciated until this evening how really important it was for Donald Trump to win. If Hillary Clinton had won, none of this would have surfaced. They just would have kept covering up all the corruption, and they would have just kept taking care of themselves. So the very fact that you had this disruptive figure in the White House, all of us are learning some pretty horrifying things about how sick the system is, how sick the entire process is, in ways I would have thought were impossible. I mean, I have the greatest respect for the Federal Bureau of Investigation, and it is astonishing to me that you could have people at the top who are this corrupt, this profoundly dishonest. The second thing that struck me, listening actually to your opening monologue, if you take what General Flynn is accused of, and then you take virtually anything Hillary's done, I mean, 33,000 deletions of emails without any kind of approval, all the having a totally inappropriate server that was totally outside the State Department rules. I mean, just go down the list. Any one of her things would certainly have at least matched what they're accusing General Flynn of.
How can it be possible you don't finish an investigation and you're writing an exoneration, and this Trump hater, pro-Hillary guy is in the heart of all of this? Something is radically wrong if you believe in equal justice under the law.
You know, my granddaughter Maggie just got me to read a fascinating book about murders in Osage County, Oklahoma in the 1920s. And part of what comes through that book is everybody locally was corrupt. The sheriff was corrupt. The judges were corrupt. I mean, nobody could get any kind of decency. And that actually is the case that J. Edgar Hoover used to begin building the modern FBI, in the sense of an honest, integrity-filled, serious investigative agency. It's a fascinating book. But what struck me was we now have the corruption that book describes at the very center of our national capital. Think about Comey. Comey decides to interview Hillary Clinton not under oath. So even no matter what she said for, I think, 4 hours, none of it counts towards what happened to General Flynn.
The exoneration letter was already written.
Because she's never under oath.
But the exoneration was written.
I mean, they might as well drop.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
You have a best-selling book. It's ripped from the headlines, your book, Vengeance, which I'm almost done with. And it's a great book. You're a great writer. And I'm thinking, you can't even make this up when you think this is the United States of America. Our mutual friend Mark Levin calls this a post-constitutional republic. This is now becoming a banana republic if this stays. My question, where do we go from here, knowing what we now know?
Well, what I would say is I haven't given up on America. I don't think Donald Trump's given up on America.
I'm not giving up. I'm saying this is scary.
Most of our viewers haven't. So what we now know is the swamp is sicker, more corrupt, more dishonest than we thought it was. So we just have to dig deeper, throw the rascals out. We have to recognize the election of 2018 is going to be truly historic, because it's going to be between a radical left that is stunningly corrupt and the rest of us. And we have to understand that this is a real fight for whether or not America is going to remain a republic that is ruled by law,
and
or whether it's going to degenerate into being a purely corrupt system of power, where if you're on the right team, you can rip everybody off and be protected, and if you're on the wrong team, you can be innocent and still go to jail. I mean, I think that's how serious and how profound this is right now. It's one of the great historic moments in American history.
It's a chilling one, too. And I will fight to my dying breath, as you will. I'm not giving up, but I am very deeply concerned tonight. Mr. Speaker, thank you. Appreciate it. When we come back, we're going to show you how one of the most liberal shows on television completely embarrassed themselves over ABC's fake news reporting on General Flynn. Also, Rush Limbaugh sounding the alarm on this Mueller investigation as well. We'll explain straight ahead. Today's episode of The View, Joy Behar was absolutely giddy to spread Brian Ross's fake news report, but today she's a little less excited. Take a look.
Breaking news. ABC News' Brian Ross is reporting Michael Flynn promised full cooperation to the Mueller team and is prepared to testify that as a candidate, Donald Trump directed him to make contact with the Russians. Yes! He goes to jail. He goes to jail. He goes to jail. Lock him up. Lock him up. So on Friday's show, apparently I was guilty of premature evaluation. People are slamming this as fake news. To me, it's a mistake. It's not he didn't deliberately put out a false piece of information. Yeah. He made an error.
Yeah, fake news. Joining us now, former Secret Service agent, Conservative Review contributing editor Dan Bongino, host of You Know Her, Justice with Jeanine, Judge Jeanine Pirro. Where do we even begin here?
You know, when someone is cheering about the fact that, he's going to jail, and they're talking about the President of the United States, the first thing I say to myself is that person is un-American. And the truth is, every day, Sean, I say to myself that the instincts of the American people are supported when we see all of this stuff coming out about the deep state, the fact that there is this effort on the part of the leftist socialist agenda and the FBI. And let me say something. I worked for them for 30 years when I was a DA. There are good, decent people in the FBI. Most of them. But the management and the dirt started really bad with Jim Comey. Jim Comey changed the whole color.
You once told me he's an honorable guy, and I said, no way.
And you were right. And let me tell you, he ran his office very well. And then he turned into a political whore. And he changed the nature of the FBI. Shame on him. And at the end of the day, everyone working from McCabe to this guy Strzok, they are an embarrassment to the agency.
Exoneration before investigation. Think of really how bad this is. Yeah. And this dual justice system that I'm talking about, this is not a game anymore. This is now, they are playing with constitutional fire. It is so deeply corrupt and embedded. And you're right, it's not rank and file. It's the people at the top with an agenda that think they are smarter than the American people.
Sean, don't the American people find it a little disturbing that Andrew McCabe, the number 2 at the FBI, Jim Comey, and this guy Peter Strzok would be thrown off a jury if they were appointed to this case? They would be thrown out of the jury pool like that. And yet these are the 3 people responsible for this banana of public justice?
Weissman. How do you get defeated 9-0? In a divided Supreme Court.
Right. Even the travel ban got
seriously
today in the Supreme Court.
I know.
I mean, think about what we have here. We have a former director who admitted to leaking information to start the special counsel in Jim Comey. We have a number 2 whose wife is a big time connected to Terry McAuliffe, a Clinton consigliere.
Mueller is the center of this. He appointed all his buddies. Comey, Rosenstein, McCabe, who else? Weissman. They're all their best buddies.
And you know what the problem is here?
And the Strzok guy, right?
Everything they accuse Donald Trump of is coming back to them. It's almost like, you point the finger at someone and 3 fingers are pointed back at you. And the reason they're going so strong against Donald Trump is because they've got to cover their own back.
And how do we stop this?
How we stop this is we've got to get Congress to make sure they exercise their oversight. The FBI is not an entity.
With all due respect, hell will freeze over before Republicans. I'm glad they passed the bill in the Senate. They're in committee, conference.
Yeah.
It's not happening with these Republicans.
The American people, Sean, were smart enough to put Donald Trump into office. And as they watch this, they watch your show, they understand what's going on. They see that the FBI at the top is dirty. Hillary Clinton is dirty. When the FBI writes an exoneration before the investigation is over, that is wrong. And don't you come out and tell me that everybody does it. Nobody does that. You do an investigation and then you make a decision.
Sean, he's got to fire Mueller. He's got to shut this down. I'd say to the American people right now, as a former federal agent, you're getting worked. You're getting worked. You're being played for fools. If any more of this comes out, he's got to shut that down. They got to clean house at the top of the FBI. There's no other way. You are getting played
who's going to fire him?
Fools.
Yeah, he can't fire him. That's the problem. What he's got to do is you've got to have Sessions has got to exercise some control and appoint special counsel himself. Rod Rosenstein is running everything from the Department of Justice.
Is Rosenstein
this is a good question. Where is the Attorney General of this country?
Thank you very much. Thank you. That's the problem. Rosenstein is Sessions has backed off because Rosenstein has told him that he's got to.
He's got to get rid of this special counsel. I mean, how do you explain the fact that
no, he's got to appoint his own special counsel to go after that special
Rosenstein
counsel.
I don't understand. Is Rod Rosenstein living in like a Truman Show bubble right now with Jim Carrey? Like, is he missing all these news stories? This is clearly at this point.
Rosenstein is part of the story. He's the one that oversaw the Moscow corruption to access our uranium. He is part of the swamp.
With Mueller, they saw it in 2009.
The Justice Department's not an independent agency. They work under the executive branch. He's got to put some pressure on him to do something.
I've got to run. By the way, can a president be held for obstruction?
Absolutely not.
It's ridiculous, right?
It is ridiculous.
Got to run. All right, when we come back, Rush has a great theory on this Mueller investigation. You're going to hear that coming up later, as we also will check in with Dave Bossie and Corey Lewandowski. Inside view, what really happened behind the scenes in the Trump campaign.
The Russian collusion angle, there isn't any collusion, there isn't any evidence, and yet this investigation's ongoing. And it turns out that the investigation is attempting to criminalize a presidential transition. Now, what is happening here, in my humble opinion, and I'm not alone in this, and I'm not saying this for the first time, I think there is, and has been ever since Trump was elected, a silent coup to get him out of office, ultimately. And before that is realized, they want to totally discredit Trump. They cannot stand that an outsider has come in and become the most powerful man in the free world.
I agree. That was Rush. Powerful statement earlier today saying that the Mueller investigation is nothing but a silent coup to get rid of Trump. Here with the reaction. Brand new book on Amazon.com, Hannity.com, bookstores everywhere. Let Trump be Trump, the inside story of the rise to his presidency, out tomorrow. Former Trump campaign manager Corey Lewandowski, former deputy Trump campaign manager David Bossie. It really feels when you're going to exonerate Hillary and praise Hillary before you investigate Hillary, and then all these people assigned to basically all these anti-Trump people investigating with Mueller, this stinks to high heaven. Almost as challenging as the campaign, if not more.
Sean, this is worse. This is the American government using taxpayer resources to go after a duly elected president. What I'm gravely concerned about is we're just finding out about this FBI agent who's an anti-Trump person, a pro-Hillary person, who never put her under oath, who never asked her to swear to a federal elected official. She got a pass on this. That's the shameful thing here. And what they're doing is they're using the resources of the government to go after a president when there is nothing there.
A different set of rules for Hillary Clinton than Mike Flynn. It is a despicable thing, and I hope that we get to the bottom of it and it doesn't happen again.
No, it needs to be gotten to the bottom of now.
Absolutely.
All right. I knew you both during the campaign. I knew you both well during the campaign. It's an amazing, I think Rush also hit on another point. This wasn't supposed to happen in the media world. If you watch an election night, sometimes we'll play it was like a depressed national media in one night, all of them. And since then, they've been at war. You guys were a part of probably one of the most historic campaigns in history. You talk about it in your book.
Sean, what the book's about is the rise of Donald Trump and what he saw and what he tapped into. And the mainstream media, other than you and a few people here at Fox, never gave him the credit he deserved. They said he would never run. He'd never file the paperwork. He'd pull out of the race. He won at every single step. And even on election night, they still don't respect him. Remember, election night, they said Donald Trump will not make a concession speech tonight, and he won. And then Hillary didn't make the concession speech, and they said, well, she's tired. Well, she's tired from doing what? She didn't go to Wisconsin.
It hasn't stopped.
She didn't find Pennsylvania.
You guys are done. I'm still at this every night. Yeah.
Hillary Clinton was saying that Donald Trump wouldn't accept the results of the election, and now a year later, she hasn't accepted the results of the election.
There's funny stuff you tell. All right, the diet on the plane, Kentucky Fried Chicken, Big Mac's filet of fish. But I know this is a fact. But all my favorite foods also, like all of us, right?
Look, he's a blue-collar guy. He's never changed from that. And the fact that we were eating McDonald's on the plane and Kentucky Fried Chicken, and maybe if we were really lucky, a Chick-fil-A every now and then, it just didn't, you know. That's,
really lucky?
We're really lucky.
Really?
Hey, Mr. Trump, can we change up a little bit? How about
the schedule was so hard. He pushed himself and the team to the limit.
He got yelled at. He tells the story. You got screamed at because you fell asleep on the plane.
Sean, I fell asleep one time in 18 months, and he said, if you can't take it, we'll get somebody else. And he meant that in the best sense, because
that's right.
He is such a driver. He is a 71-year-old who works 19 hours a day, 7 days a week. And, you know, you don't hear the story. Remember, Hillary's tired. She had to take a week off before the debate. Donald Trump campaigned 6 stops a day.
What about Access Hollywood? That was a moment. Tell that story.
You know what? In the book, Let Trump Be Trump, we talk about these important moments in the campaign. The Billy Bush weekend, it was an important moment, but it showed the sand, the gravel that this president has, because he said, this was locker room talk. He made his statement. And he moved on, and he delivered 48 hours later a devastating performance.
People were saying they didn't even think he'd show up.
That's right.
Remember that?
The Hillary people were putting out, will he even show up? Not only did he come to the debate,
I say he won. I say he won the presidency that night.
I believe he did. I think.
Look, I agree with you. You know why? Because the Republican Party was so ready to walk away from him, and he destroyed her so badly during that debate. And don't forget, that was the debate where those 4 women sat there, the accusers of Bill Clinton, and nobody other than Donald Trump had the tenacity to make that happen, because he doubles down. He is so good at going after.
Well, how does happen? He's gotten rid of all these regulations. They didn't get health care yet, but you know, we'll see what happens. This tax bill, I don't like some aspects of it, but this is going to help the economy. Ending regulations, corporate tax, repatriation, energy independence.
3.3% growth. Sean, for years, the 8 years of Obama, we lived under stagnation, 1.2, 1.6, the new normal of our economy, no growth. And now, the sheer will of Donald Trump's personality and his hope and
keeping
optimism.
Businesses, and shaming them into investing in the country.
That's right. And the power of his pen. He has grown our economy single-handedly. And he, with this economic package, with this tax reform package, he is going to drive our economy into the next stratosphere.
What about Republicans being so weak, Corey?
Look, you know why I love working for Trump? Because he's so tough, and he always doubles down. And what that means is he has taken those Republicans and he's dragged them to get tax reform done. Look, we were at the lowest unemployment rate in 25 years, the highest home ownership. The stock markets get $6 billion in because of Donald Trump. You know the number, Sean, better than anybody.
Corey, I said them every night for a year on purpose.
That's right.
So everybody would get it.
But he also,
but now it's changing.
And don't forget, Donald Trump made the issue of illegal immigration a campaign issue, and that was something the Republicans refused to do.
You guys were a part of history. It's called Let Trump Be Trump. Bookstores everywhere. My website, Hannity.com, Amazon.com. This will be #1. That's my prediction. Good to see you both. When we come back, Obama's never-ending obsession with me and Fox. I got a message for President Obama, former president. All right, as we have highlighted many times on this program, President Obama has been absolutely obsessed with Fox News and me. You may remember some of this.
In 2012, Latinos voted in record numbers. The next day, even Sean Hannity changed his mind and decided immigration reform was a good idea. Rudy Giuliani said, Putin is what you call a leader. Mike Huckabee and Sean Hannity keep talking about his bare chest, which is kind of weird. With respect to Sean Hannity, I didn't know that he had invited me for a beer. His opinion of me does not seem to be very high, but I'm always good for a beer. I'll put Mr. Burgess up against Sean Hannity. He'll tear him up.
Was he threatening violence? Oh my gosh. Now apparently Obama, I'm kidding, even though he's he can't get over his obsession with Fox News. Those are what he had to say at a political summit overseas in India. Really? He's obsessed.
Those who watch Fox News and those who read the New York Times occupy completely different realities. I mean, if I watched Fox News, I wouldn't vote for me, because there's this unrecognizable character. I remember when I was president, every once in a while I'd watch, who is that guy? You know, this character named Barack Obama, and he's just portrayed in these weird ways, and there are these selective clips that come out, you know, where the sentence isn't finished, and then And it's all edited and shaped to promote a certain story.
Not true. Pretty unbelievable. Listen, you're now citizen Barack Obama. Here's my advice to you. Get over it. Go give a speech. Go write a book that leftists will buy. Go write about Acorn, Alinsky, Reverend Wright, Bernardine Dorn, and Bill Ayers. Go do that. As always, thank you for being with us. We'll always be fair and balanced. We're not the Destroy Trump media. All right, Laura Ingraham, I'm going to give her some of my time, is next.